If you saw the movie The Matrix, this is where the movie was based from. This information. And I and our children will use to solve the problems that we're leaving in the world today. Is something that does not happen in your mind. For 70 years, scientists have been telling us that we are little particles of quantum energy. And now we believe them. But now scientists say those little quantum particles can do miraculous things, amazing things. But the scientists say those miracles have nothing to do with your life. Quantum particles can exist in two places or many places at the same time, and they are always connected. They are always connected with one another. Quantum particles can communicate with themselves in the past and in the future. This is very interesting. Scientists can take a quantum particle and they know everything there is to know about this particle. They know its rotation, its plus, its minus, its charge in the present. Now, they can take it into the future, all right, now. They can change the particle now, and it changes what it had to be in the past to get to now. They can change the particle in the present, and it changes the particle in the past, even though the past already happened. Very interesting. So the question is, we're made of those particles. So can we do what these particles can do? We're made of quantum particles. Are they showing us our limits, or are they showing us our possibility, our potential? We're made of those particles. We are held together through a focus, a force. What is the force that holds our quantum particles together as our bodies? 1944, the father of quantum theory, his name was Max Planck, made this statement. He said, the stuff of our world does not exist the way we think it exists. Max Planck said, as a man who has devoted his whole life to the most clear-headed science, to the study of matter, I can tell you as a result of my research about the atoms this much. There is no matter as such. What he's saying is the stuff that we're made of does not exist the way we believe it exists. He goes on to say that what we think is matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force. He said there's a force out there that holds everything together in our bodies and in our world. He said we must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious mind, an intelligent mind. He said this mind is the matrix of all matter. If you saw the movie The Matrix, this is where the movie was based from, this information. The father of quantum theory, Max Planck, said that there is an energy, a field of energy that holds everything together, that this is not solid and we are not solid. If you want to change an atom, you have to change the energy that the atom lives in. If you want to change the stuff, the physical stuff of our world, you must change the energy that that stuff exists within. Einstein said this very well. Einstein actually said the field that connects everything together is what he called the governing agency of the particle. Einstein said the field is what determines how the atom behaves. It's in the field. So the field that we're talking about, the field is made of electrical energy, it's made of magnetic energy, two energies. The new discoveries are telling a new human story. That's the good news. It's a story of hope, possibility, self-empowerment. They're not being shared in the mainstream. You're not going to see them in the universities. You're not going to see them in the mainstream television documentaries. But we need this information now because it helps us not just to survive, but to thrive in the new world that's emerging when a lot of people are very frightened by what they're seeing in the world. We have these extraordinary potential, extraordinary capacities within us that have always been there since we showed up 200,000 years ago. It's not like they appeared and evolved as we needed them over time. There are a number of battles that are unfolding in the world right now. There's a battle for our thoughts through the media, we all know that. There's a battle for the human story, but there's a more subtle battle that is playing out for our very humanness. Technology is now being introduced to replace the essence of some of the functions that are uniquely human. So, for example, Elon Musk, who I have a lot of respect for. I think he's a brilliant man, a visionary, young, vibrant, and he is pushing this boundary of technology, is introducing computer chips. Now, the actual chip is embedded into the human brain, and the neurons of the brain are linked into the contacts on the chip that allow an individual from their brain to communicate directly with their computer hard drive. And people don't understand that we already have neurons, they're called mirror neurons, in the neocortex that help us to learn very, very quickly from observing what we see without having something like a digital interface in our brain. And this is just one example, but what the science is showing is that when we begin to use the technology to perform the functions that we already are designed to do, those functions begin to atrophy. We begin to lose those uniquely human abilities, and the question is, how much of that do we want to give away? And I'm not saying that the technology is right or wrong, or good or bad, but I'm saying that we need to be aware of what we are and who we are, the full potential of what it means to be human before we give it away, before we relinquish that, because once it's gone, we'll never get it back. So what is it? How much of our unique humanness, our ability for empathy, sympathy, compassion, emotion, self-regulation, these are all functions of the neurons, the way they're connected in our bodies. And when the technology begins to replace that, we lose those abilities. When we begin to use the machines and we don't use our own biological capacity, that capacity begins to atrophy. You know, we're seeing this in, there are cultures right now, societies, where the human relationships are being carried on digitally. They're through the computer. The people never come together at all. So they don't have to deal with the messiness of the relationship. And in those cultures, what is beginning to happen now is birth rates are declining because infertility is increasing. Women are not fertile, men are becoming more sterile. We're seeing this happen in Japan, for example. And this is one of the countries where the technology is moving so quickly that they're having digital relationships. You log onto the computer and you find a partner. And you have a tech...
You end up marrying a robot.
Well, you can do that, or you can actually have sex over the internet. You have a tech package as a male or a tech package as a female, and you hook it to your body, and the person on the other end pushes the buttons that manipulate the package that's attached to your body. Now, I'm not saying it's not right, wrong, good, or bad, but we're losing the intimacy of human relationships, and biologically, what is happening is birth rates are dropping and our ability to reproduce are dropping, and that is just one example. So I'm saying it's important for us to know what does it really mean to be human, and we're only beginning to understand. New neurons, a new class of neurons were discovered only in August of 2018.
The field that holds everything together. This is out of a traditional text, a traditional physics text. Look at what this says. This says if you change the electric field, that you will change the way the atom behaves, and there's actually a name for this. It is called the Stark effect. So
So if you change the electrical field, the Stark effect, you change the atom, or if you change the magnetic field, it's called the Zeeman effect, you change the atom. So all this is saying is that science knows today, if you change the electrical field or you change the magnetic field, you change the atom. Our world is made of electrical and magnetic energy, the atom. And the science says if you change the electrical field or you change the magnetic field, you change that atom. There is one organ in your body that produces the strongest electrical field and the strongest magnetic field. The human heart produces the strongest electrical and magnetic fields in the body. Some people said the brain. The brain does produce these fields, but look, the heart's electrical field is 100 times stronger than the brain. 100 times stronger than the brain. The heart's magnetic field is up to 5,000 times stronger than the brain's magnetic field. Belief is the code that takes that field of energy, possibilities, and translates that field into the reality of this world. Belief is the code that translates possibilities into the reality of this world.
There is an openness now, Lilu, to embrace new ways of thinking that I've never seen in my lifetime. I was alive in the 1960s when a thought revolution swept the planet, and this revolution is it is so much more even than the 1960s, and it's being embraced on a global level. I think I'm also a realist. And realistically, I think we're going through some difficult times to get to the other side. The systems have to break down, and that breakdown looks like chaos. But in nature, this is the way nature works. A system will become so complex that it's no longer sustainable, and then it must break down to give way to a higher order. And so what we're living now, we're seeing our world is very complex. We're seeing those unsustainable systems break down, but they're not just breaking for no reason. They're breaking to give way to a higher order. And the chaos is intense, but it usually is brief. It doesn't last lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. What we're doing now, we can't go on the way we are right now. Something's got to give. And the good news is that we already have all of the answers to the big questions. We already know how to create energy without burning fossil fuels. We know how to grow food without taking acres and acres and acres of land and being susceptible and vulnerable to climate. We already know that the climate is changing. We know where that change is going to lead, and we know how to adapt to that change. We know how to live together, the people of the world. I've been all over this world. The people of this world, I believe, genuinely love one another, and they know how to live together. It's a handful of people in positions of power that are having the problems. It's not the everyday people having the problems. And I think those are all really good. It's good news. So if we can just hold together as a global family and embrace the new discoveries that tell us the deepest truths of our existence, and we bring those truths to bear upon our lives, we become the best version of ourselves and the best version of the world that's possible. And I believe that we will see that in our lifetime. We're seeing it happen now.